Hey, glad to see you, Adrian. I'm going to cut straight to the chase because we spoke about it. Question to you: how to increase concentration? That's what we're going to talk about today, right? So my first question to you is, from a psychologist's perspective, what is concentration?
Oh, I'm so glad you're asking about concentration, buddy. It's so important with football. Basically, concentration is simply the degree to which you can focus effectively on something. And sometimes you'll see definitions that say your ability to focus effectively on something while ignoring other things. But if you actually think about it, if you are focusing effectively, then you're not focusing on anything else. And so it's really simple stuff. Concentration is simply the ability to focus effectively on something.
All right. So from your perspective as a psychologist, right? Uh, what is concentration? What is concentration in a footballer's in football?
Okay, so if concentration is simply your ability to focus effectively, for a footballer, it's same thing. The ability to focus effectively on your football match. Or if you're at training, focus effectively on your practice.
Okay, so the other part of it now. So we got to the footballer's ability, right? Uh, our footballers' concentration ability is limited in that respect.
Oh, absolutely. And footballers are no different from anybody else in that we have a limited capacity to concentrate. And yes, you'll hear people say, oh, I can multitask. But the reality is they probably are not multitasking. I'll give you a really good example. There was a study done by 2 Canadian researchers who looked at, over a 14-month period, 26,000 cell phone communications. And what they found was that when you were driving and using your cell phone, you were 4 times more likely to be involved in the collision than if you were not using your cell phone. We just can't do 2 things that require a lot of thinking at the same time. That's just the truth. And that, not surprisingly, therefore, poor concentration is the second major reason why people die on the roads. It's sad, but it's true. So what's the message here for a footballer? I like to think of concentration as like a scarce resource, and footballers should be just focusing their mind, just filling it with what they need and nothing else.
Great. So now to relate that to a footballer taking a penalty.
Oh, okay. Perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you three suggestions. The first one is you just want to fill your mind with what you need to do. And it should all be about seeing a positive outcome, nothing else. The second thing I'd say is that you actually don't want to be aware of your thinking. You want to be almost working on remote control, and it just happens. And the third thing, well, how do you get to that second one is, well, use a individualized mental skills training routine. Just use a routine that you implement without even really being aware that you're implementing it. And it has to be individualized. Everybody's routine will be different, and you need to practice it and practice it and practice it and practice it at training so that when it comes to the real thing, it's just no big deal. And so what you need to do as a coach in particular is ensure that your training is lifelike as possible. So very quickly, I'll give you one example. What you can do is you can put speakers near the field in training so you can simulate the amount of noise that the crowd makes. So there's a lot of things coaches can do to make practice very lifelike and game-like.
Sounds great. Now, 5 minutes before a game, before the end of a first half, and also the start of the second half, there's a problem with concentration. Address that for me.
Oh, once again, great question. One thing that I would recommend is that you've got to get the whole team to buy into it with the coach as well and the staff. And then if everybody is agreeable to it, what you can do is you can get a prearranged, very clear signal sent usually by the coach to the players 5 minutes before the end of the first half, or at the start of the second half, just before the whistle goes, and all the players will do a different individual routine. And I use an acronym ECG, energy, Q, goal. So every player has their own routine where they create something in the way of energy. So it can be just a few simple words. Then, and all it does is it reminds them of the intensity that they need to be playing at. Then Q, what are the most important thing that they need to be focusing on? And then finally, goal, what is it they want to achieve in this game? So let's take a goalkeeper. A goalkeeper, they can touch their index finger with their thumb and at the same time in their head say to themselves something like maybe calm. Then, in terms of Q, they would say something to remind them of what they need to be doing, which might be something like quick reflexes. And then finally, with the G, goal, it might be something like nothing gets past me. So if you think about it, if you're just saying those three little things to yourself, plus touching your index finger with your thumb, it's not going to take more than about 3 seconds. And every player will have their own one. And as a result, they're more likely to keep their concentration levels up.
Oh, great. Now, very important question for you now. Is there a relationship between cardiovascular fitness and concentration?
Oh, 100%, buddy. The more you can get your players fitter, the better they'll concentrate and the better they'll do what you want as a coach. So yes, no, it's very, very important. I'll give you 2 quick examples. The first one is research to show that if you train people physically over several months, their ability to concentrate goes up and the speed at which they process information is quickened. So instead of taking X amount of time to work out what to do to header a ball, it takes you less time. What we also know is that there's also a temporary increase every time you do some exercise. So if you do a warm-up, your ability to concentrate goes up and the amount of time you need to process information goes down. So a warm-up is not only a physical warm-up, but it's actually a mental warm-up.
Great. Now we move on to another question that is kind of on mind of some, right? What are other things that the footballer can do to improve their concentration?
Oh, okay, cool. I have an acronym TRIPE, TRIPE. Let's just focus on 2 of them because they're really good for football. The second one are regular meditation. Now, it's not something that every footballer does, but they should. If you really want to perform really well, you need to have a great brain. And one of the best ways to have a great brain is to do meditation. And nicely, it only takes you 60 seconds. 7 days times 1 minute of meditation is far more effective than 1 day times 20 minutes. All you have to do is a very simple technique, regular meditation, and as a result, your anxiety goes down, the amount of negative thoughts goes down, and the amount of ability to concentrate goes up. So that's the R in TRIPE. Let's try a P. And the P is just as important for coaches as players. It's to stay positive, think positive, behave positive. And there's a very good biological reason why you need to do this. You have 2 brain systems, nervous systems, your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. And it's actually very easy to understand this. Your sympathetic nervous system starts with the letter S, and so does the word sad. Sad is a negative emotion. So anytime that you are thinking negatively, doing something negative, saying something negative, you are likely to kick in that sympathetic nervous system. And as a result, your blood pressure goes up, your heart rate goes up, and your ability to concentrate goes down. However, if you think positively, speak positively, do positively, you're more likely to kick in the other system, which starts with the letter P, parasympathetic nervous system. And if you do kick in your parasympathetic nervous system, you are likely to decrease your blood pressure, decrease anxiety, decrease heart rate, and increase your ability to concentrate. So do regular meditation, can be as little as 60 seconds a day, and think positive, be positive, act positive.
Great. Now I refer to myself as a coach now. Give me some extra advice concerning concentration.
Oh, okay. Let me give you 3 things. First one, when you're trying to give players information, use a free phase approach. Tell them what you are going to tell them, then tell them the information, and then finally tell them what you told, so that way they can work out the main message and focus on that. So that's the first thing. The second one relates to what we were just talking about being positive. And coaches really need to take this on board because it's so powerful. Think positive, speak positive, act positive, be positive. Be a great role model, and as a result, the footballers are likely to follow you. And then finally, what I do is I get you to think about what I said a little bit earlier. Think of concentration as a scarce resource, and so that we should respect it and just fill our minds with the things that we need to be focusing on and ignore everything else. So don't buy into things like perfectionism, where you set yourself up for failure. Instead, say to yourself, I want to perform really well at a very high level, but I'm not going to aim to be perfect because that's crazy. And the best example I can give you of that is Ben & Jerry's, the ice cream company. They realize that not every flavor is going to sell well. And so if a flavor doesn't sell well, what they actually do is they have a ceremony and they bury their flavor in a flavor graveyard. And I think that's what we all should do. Is that if things aren't working well, bury it and stay positive. And as a result, concentration will go up and you'll be able to do more effective things.
Yeah, I know you have just a little bit of extra time here. This can happen for players themselves, right? Extra time in goals in penalty shootouts, that type of, we can relate to that advice that they give the coaches back to some of the players.
Well, okay. Let's take an example of if a team, the opposition scores a goal. If the opposition scores a goal, what you should be doing is just the same thing as you were doing before they scored. You should be following your game plan, plus any caveats that you had with regard to if a player was sent off or if you go down a goal or two. Nothing should really change. You want to keep as close as possible to your game plan. And so you ask yourself, well, how do you do this? Well, it all comes back to you should be training your brain with an expert sports psychologist. That's the same as you train your football skills with an expert coach and your physical body with an expert physical trainer.
Okay, great answer. We have to end it here, but I'm looking forward. I think we discussed and I asked you to talk about the next one I wanted to talk about is how to increase confidence. Right, so
cool,
not sort of give up anything that you, but give me something that you might be talking about in that.
Oh, okay. How about we'll talk about goat, but not pot. But I'll tell you about that next time.
Well, I'm really looking forward to hear that. It was great talking to you as usual. In our conversations sometimes with each other, we always sort of pick other brains about what that a sports psychologist's responsibility is, and I'm glad so we can get deeper into when we talk about how to increase confidence.
Yeah, good,
I
buddy.
really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your answers. They were real concise. They were direct answers, and I love that. All right, see you next time, Adrian. As I said again, it's a lot wonderful talking to you.
Likewise. Ciao, buddy.
Ciao.